The day I decided to reclaim my dignity and no longer be the rich family's son-in-law, my mother-in-law smiled at me and said, "George, if you want to divorce Willow, you must return the 100 billion in assets and leave with nothing." She calmly spun a glass bead between her fingers, completely certain that I would never dare agree. However, the very next moment I responded, "Of course I can do that. I'll sign the agreement right away." She panicked. The glass beads slipped from her hand and scattered across the floor. She asked again, her voice tense, "Are you sure you can accept giving up the child's custody and never seeing her or her son again?" I replied once more, "Of course I can accept that. What's there not to accept?" My tone was firm, indifferent. I continued, "Madam, isn't the child about to have a new father to take over and raise him? Besides, the contract is over. I've earned enough. I don't intend to keep what doesn't belong to me. All I want now is to stand on my own and make money." Mother Lou fell silent for a long time. Finally, she let out a deep sigh and said, "Since you insist on leaving, I'll arrange for you to go study music in Vienna, as per our agreement. The paperwork will take a week. As for the divorce, you can bring it up with Willow yourself." "Thank you, madam." After leaving the old house, I quietly took out a photo. In the photo, Willow wore a bright smile, her face radiating happiness. Our son, David, was holding a toy, joyfully dancing around. The irony was, the man in the photo was not me. It was Makoto, Willow's childhood sweetheart. Chapter 1. Makoto and Willow both came from noble families. They were childhood sweethearts, even becoming each other's first love. However, when Makoto was 20, he went abroad and arranged a marriage with another woman. When Willow found out, she nearly went mad. She cried all day, completely losing herself in sorrow. To help her regain her strength, Mother Lou found me, a man desperately in need of money, and bought 10 years of my life for 5 million, helping Willow get back on track. From that day on, a crazy pursuer appeared beside Willow. I was a graduate of the art department at Peking University. Whenever Willow felt down, I would play songs for her, anytime, anywhere. When she had minor illnesses, I stayed up day and night, taking care of her with meticulous attention. Over time, she became accustomed to having me around, but she never agreed to anything more. It wasn't until one drinking session, some rich young men used a cross-national project as a bet, competing to see who could drink the most. I drank until I suffered gastric bleeding and collapsed unconscious in the hospital. That was the first time Willow cried for me. She said, "George, I agree to marry you. I believe we'll have a future." Later I found out that very day was the day Makoto got married. There were rumors circulating that he was kissing his new wife. When I learned the truth, I wasn't discouraged. Instead, I continued to fulfill the contract and entered the Lou family as a son-in-law. We were married for 8 years. I worked diligently and we even had a child, David Lou, who carried the Lou family name. I once believed life would always be peaceful. But recently, the Ito family encountered a crisis. Makoto returned to the country after divorcing. That very day, Willow immediately went to the airport to pick him up and welcome him back. The two gradually rekindled their feelings. Their contact became more frequent. To push me out faster, Makoto intentionally grew close to David, speaking badly about me. After that, my once cold and taciturn son began calling Makoto Dad in an intimate manner. My wife, who had never entered the kitchen before, began personally making hot snacks for Makoto. In my heart, I understood. I had lost my place in this family. But it didn't matter anymore. 1 week later, I could escape this place that had trapped me for 10 years and finally pursue my grand musical ambitions. I drafted the divorce agreement and quietly waited for the mother and son to return. Half an hour later, the villa door opened. Chapter 2. I heard the sound and, as usual, neatly placed their slippers and organized their clothes. I had prepared the meal in advance, carefully timing it so they could eat while it was still hot. I said, "It's autumn now. I've stewed some chicken soup from our own farm. You and David should eat it while it's hot." Willow replied casually, I just caught up with Makoto. We already ate. Her eyes never left her phone, as if she were busy sending messages. David frowned impatiently. Why is it soup again? I told you I wanted fried chicken. I frowned slightly. David, eating too much fried chicken is bad for your health. He pouted. I don't care. Uncle Ito took me to eat fried chicken. You're just cheap. David threw the chopsticks I handed him. No wonder they say you're useless. No money, no ability. Can't even make fried chicken. You're worse than Uncle Ito's little finger. Garbage. Those immature, venomous words pierced my heart like a steel needle. A cold chill spread through me. I didn't know what Makoto had been telling David to make him so ungrateful. I slowly looked at Willow. Her response was even more chilling. David's still young. Don't take it to heart. She only glanced at him and casually added, David, don't talk to your dad like that. He rolled his eyes. No, I'm saying it. I'm saying it. I'm saying it. David made a face and ran upstairs, shouting, You can't even talk back. You really are a useless loser. And just like that, everything returned to normal. The huge living room fell into dead silence. The crystal chandelier swayed slightly above us. I sat on the couch for a long while, then slowly pulled out the divorce agreement from under the coffee table. At that moment, Willow was still staring at her phone. Her furrowed brow relaxed into a content, comfortable expression. Without saying a word, it was obvious she was chatting with Makoto. The genuine joy on her face was something she had never shown in the 7 years of our marriage. I gave a self-deprecating smile and placed the agreement on the coffee table. It didn't matter anymore. Once it was signed, Willow and I would have no ties. I would be completely free. I said calmly, Willow, let's divorce. I'll leave with nothing. She nodded. She didn't even look up. David will stay with you. We'll never see each other again. If there's no problem, just sign it. Okay. Her indifference was something I had long grown used to. Now that Makoto was back, she didn't even bother with appearances. I handed her the pen. She signed without hesitation, but paused before the final stroke. I looked closer. She was staring at her screen, grinning foolishly. Willow, did you hear what I just said? She replied absent-mindedly. About what? She snapped back to reality and impatiently finished signing without even looking at the document. Isn't it about the charity event for the group? You can sign these things on your own from now on. Why keep asking me? She stood up, returned to her room, and shut the door tightly. Watching her retreating figure, my lips twitched. As expected, she hadn't heard a single word. 10 years of my life. And in the end, all I received was my wife's indifference and my son's contempt. At least it would all be over soon. In just 7 days, I could finally fly far away. My wife, my son, the so-called family, I didn't want any of it. Chapter 3. The next morning was cold, the first chill of autumn settling in. I woke up early and found Willow was no longer beside me. I quickly made breakfast, then headed to the 3rd hospital. When I reached the ward, the elderly woman immediately sat up, her wrinkles softening into a smile. George, what brings you here? I smiled. Grandma, I came to say goodbye. I handed her the 1 million I had just received as the final payment. I'm leaving soon to study music abroad. This 1 million is my last donation to the orphanage. She choked up. Child, why are you giving money again? The director of the orphanage stood beside us, tears streaming down her face. When I was 5, she found me and raised me in the orphanage. Later, through my own efforts, I was admitted to Peking University's art department and was preparing to study music abroad. But she fell seriously ill and urgently needed 500,000 for life-saving treatment. In gratitude for everything she had done for me, I exchanged 10 years of my life for the surgery funds. The remaining money was used to help rebuild the orphanage. She no longer knew how to thank me. I said softly, Grandma, please don't worry. When I return after my studies, money will no longer be a problem. She nodded through tears. That's true. It's a good thing you're going abroad to further your studies. I'm happy for you. Suddenly, the director seemed to remember something and asked, but if you go abroad, won't it be hard to see your wife and child? I rubbed my shoulder and replied calmly, it's better this way. Less trouble, less to worry about. After a moment, seeing the suspicion in her eyes, I chuckled lightly and added, I've already divorced. The director froze for a brief moment, then pulled my head into her arms and hugged me tightly. Good. It's good that you've divorced, she murmured softly. You've suffered all these years. Remember to treat yourself better from now on. I will, I replied quietly. Grandma, I promise. After leaving the hospital, I headed home to pack my things. I had completed my final task and was ready to leave the Liu family without any lingering attachments. In just a few hours, I packed everything. All the things related to Willow and her son. The hand-carved wooden sculptures Willow had made. The sketches she had drawn. The baby items I had kept after taking care of the child. For 10 years, I had devoted myself to this family, even though it wasn't just because of the contract. I had truly hoped to create a warm home of my own. But in the end, it was all just a dream. I took one last look at everything, then threw it all into the trash outside. At that moment, a Rolls-Royce stopped in front of the house. David jumped out of the car first. Seeing me standing beside the trash can, he frowned in disgust. What are you doing picking through the garbage? Aren't you embarrassed? He added impatiently, Is dinner ready? I want fried chicken. Looking at the son I had raised for 6 years, my heart twisted painfully. Cold, angry, I frowned and replied, If you want fried chicken, go ask your Uncle Ito. You! David's face filled with shock. This was the first time he had ever been treated like this. At that moment, Willow walked over with Makoto beside her. She said casually, George, Makoto's house is undergoing some changes, and he needs to stay with us for a few days. You don't mind, do you? This was Makoto's first appearance. His handsome features hadn't aged at all after years of marriage. No wonder Willow had always been obsessed with him. In contrast, I too had once been young. Now I only looked worn down by exhaustion. David seized the moment and shouted, Hurry up and help Uncle Ito move his luggage. You bad dad, do you hear me? Otherwise, I won't like you anymore. I looked at them both and said calmly, Sorry, I just twisted my shoulder. I can't help move anything. At that, a cold glint flashed through Makoto's eyes, but he immediately hid it, putting on a troubled expression. Well, maybe we'll just forget about it. It seems Mr. Wong isn't too happy. I'm sorry. He turned as if to leave, but Willow grabbed his arm and sneered, If it's a problem, I'll help you with the luggage. He won't mind, trust me. I quietly watched the scene and chuckled. Sure, go ahead and stay in our room. I won't have any objections. But what did it matter? Judging by Willow's attitude, this house would soon belong to Makoto anyway. Chapter 4. Hearing this, Willow hurried to help Makoto with his backpack, as if afraid that if she delayed even 1 second, he might leave again. David, understanding the situation, also ran over to help carry the bag. Just like that, the three of them supported one another, chatting and laughing, like a family returning from a holiday. David said unhappily, What are you still standing there for? Hurry up and cook dinner. I want fried chicken. Mom and Uncle Ito want seafood to nourish their bodies. I had long become nothing more than a servant in this household. For years, I had driven them around like a chauffeur, cleaned the house like a maid, cooked meals like a professional chef. Not only did I have to cater to Willow's picky tastes, but I also had to prepare the most nutritious meals for David. The mother and son had always been served hand and foot. However, this time my response was unexpected. I can't make it. Willow looked at me in surprise. In her memory, this was the first time I had ever refused. Before she could respond, Makoto sighed softly, putting on a pretentious, apologetic expression. Sorry, I shouldn't have stayed here. After all, I'm just an outsider. It's not right to ask Mr. Wong to cook. He turned around, grabbed his luggage, and put it back into the trunk, closing the door. Willow immediately said, "It's not your fault." Her face darkened as she looked at me. "You said you didn't mind. So what is all this now?" I answered indifferently, "There's no food left in the fridge. I can't cook. Because I was about to leave. I hadn't gone shopping today. Besides, I had never planned to cook in the first place. After enduring for 10 years, I wasn't going to back down anymore." Hearing this, David immediately threw a tantrum. "I knew it. You're the worst dad ever. Now you can't even prepare a meal? Are you trying to starve us?" "Worst dad. I want Uncle Ito to be my dad instead." A flash of smugness crossed Makoto's eyes, but he quickly masked it with hypocrisy. "David, how can you talk to your father like that? That's very rude." "Sorry, Uncle Ito. I'll be more careful next time." Makoto smiled gently. "Never mind. Since there's no food at home, why don't we just go to the Western restaurant we passed earlier? I'll order you fried chicken separately." "Yay! Uncle Ito is the best." David clung to Makoto's leg, acting like a spoiled child. Willow watched happily from the side. The scene looked warm, loving. Without hesitation, the three of them got into the back seat. Willow asked Makoto to drive so he could rest. Along the way, Makoto chatted and played games with Willow and David, laughing nonstop. I was treated as if I didn't exist. Makoto laughed and said, "Mr. Wong, I'm just catching up with Willow. Don't mind me." Then he deliberately added, "After all, you don't know about our past. So it's not appropriate to talk about it in front of you." I replied with a single word. I stared straight ahead, expressionless. I didn't need to know, and I didn't want to. None of this mattered anymore. Half an hour later, they arrived at the restaurant. Willow picked up the menu and instructed the waiter. "Makoto likes filet mignon, medium rare. No black pepper." 10 years had passed, yet she still remembered Makoto's preferences. But when it came to me, this was the first time she had ever asked, "George, which steak do you want?" How interesting. If I hadn't seen how clingy and dependent she was with Makoto today, I would never have known she could be so gentle and considerate. After all, I had always remembered what she liked. She had always nitpicked me. I replied, "I don't eat steak." My answer surprised Willow. In 10 years of marriage, I had known her habits inside out. Yet this was the first time she was learning about mine. I added, "You all eat slowly. I'm leaving." They had already been seated, but I didn't want to stay and disgust myself any longer. The three of them made no attempt to stop me. They silently watched me leave the restaurant. I walked for a few minutes, then realized the car keys were still in my pocket. So I turned back. Before I could enter, I overheard voices from inside. "Isn't that Miss Liu? You three look really happy together." Someone teased, "Is this handsome guy your husband? He looks even better in person. No wonder you don't show off your love publicly. Afraid others will steal him." Chapter 5. Although Makoto had lived abroad for years and had nearly faded from high society, his poise and speech quickly drew attention. The crowd grew more favorable toward him. Someone remarked, "Mr. Liu and Mr. Ito really make a perfect couple. How long have you been married? Your child has grown so much." Willow's face flushed slightly, but she didn't deny it. Meanwhile, David eagerly added fuel to the fire, repeatedly calling Makoto Dad. Watching the scene, I felt a brief discomfort. Then, I regained my composure. What was there to be angry about? I was just Liu's tool to comfort Willow. Once the contract ended, the business was concluded. Nothing concerned me anymore. Inside the restaurant, Makoto spotted me through the window. He deliberately speared a piece of steak and gently lifted it to Willow's lips. "Willow, thank you for helping me find a place to stay. You must be exhausted." She smiled softly and shook her head. "It wasn't difficult. Your matters are my matters." She smiled again and opened her mouth. Makoto leaned in nearly face to face. Intimate, suggestive. The crowd began to cheer. "So sweet. Is this a drama? Kiss her. Kiss her." David shouted mischievously. Mom! Hurry up and kiss him. I can't wait. Willow pursed her lips. Behave. We're in public. Be mindful of the impact. Her face flushed as she softly scolded them. But it only encouraged Makoto. He slipped his hand into her hair and kissed her. She hesitated at first, then slowly closed her eyes and gave in. Watching from outside, I scoffed. So this Liu family princess wasn't always cold and aloof. She simply lacked interest in others. I had no intention of enduring this any longer. I handed the car keys to the waiter and left without looking back. Ms. Liu, a gentleman just returned your car keys. The waiter approached. The two were still huddled together, smiling sweetly. But Willow suddenly turned toward the door. What? Did George come back just now? Makoto noticed her reaction. A flicker of displeasure crossed his face. He quickly masked it and said lightly, Oh, I was just joking. Do you think Mr. Wong would be upset seeing this? David pouted. Uncle Ito, don't worry about him. He's just our servant. Besides, you and Mom dated before. What's wrong with a kiss? David, stop saying things like that. Even as a child, he spoke with cruelty beyond his years. Willow's expression shifted slightly. She silenced him, hurriedly packed her things, and rushed outside. On the cold sidewalk, she jogged toward me as I was about to get into a cab. When our eyes met, she held her breath, bracing for confrontation. But after a long silence, I remained as calm as still water. Finally, Willow spoke. Don't misunderstand what you saw. It was just a joke with Makoto. There's no other meaning. Seeing that I didn't react at all, Willow's frustration slowly surfaced. She frowned and said, Are you mad at me? There was nothing I could do. So many people were teasing us. I looked at her calmly. I'm not angry with you. Brief pause. Is there anything else? Willow shook her head. She stood there, frozen, watching as I got into the car and drove away. For some reason, a strange feeling stirred in her chest. When did George become so magnanimous? Before she could think further, Makoto caught up to her. She pushed the thought aside and returned to the restaurant to finish the meal. As night fell, the group returned to the villa, chatting and laughing. Once inside, Willow kindly prepared a set of sheets and toiletries for Makoto. She had never really done housework before and didn't even know where most things were. Though she felt slightly uneasy, she eventually came to ask me for help. I said nothing. I quietly gathered the items, carried them over, then retreated to my study, closing the door behind me. Makoto stood there holding a towel. He sighed lightly and said, Looks like Mr. Wong still has some hostility toward me. Maybe I should stay at a hotel tomorrow. Willow replied without hesitation. Hotels can't compare to the comfort of a villa. Then, with a slightly complicated expression, she added, George was acting a little strange today. Don't take it personally. David immediately grabbed Makoto's hand. Uncle Ito, my dad has taken over the study. Tonight, you should sleep in the master bedroom with us. Makoto hesitated. Isn't that a bit much? David laughed. Oh, come on. You're the guest. We can't let you sleep on the couch. All right. Makoto finally agreed reluctantly. Not even half an hour later, my phone buzzed. Several pictures came through. They were from Makoto. Mr. Wong, could I borrow your razor? The photos showed the razor, and also Makoto playing games with Willow and David. I replied casually. It's something I've used, but if you don't mind, go ahead. I turned my phone to silent, soft breath, and fell asleep peacefully. Time passed quickly. 2 days later, only 4 days remained before the divorce cooling-off period would end. I had already purchased the instruments I needed for my continuing education. I was practicing quietly in my room. Downstairs, however, the noise from Makoto and David grew louder and louder. It became unbearable. I went downstairs and found the two of them fooling around near the fish tank. Ito, uncle! David shouted excitedly. I want to play cat catches fish. Can you bring the fish tank down for me? Wait! I stepped forward and blocked their path. You can't play with the fish. Choose something else. David had played with this fish tank many times before. Every time he would torment the fish until they were almost dead, and I would be the one left to clean up the mess. I had scolded him countless times. All I ever received in return were curses and hostility. This time I stopped him because I didn't want to see the fish I had spent money on, the fish I had carefully cared for, ruined again. David exploded. You just don't want me to play, he growled angrily. Makoto seized the moment to speak. George, what's a few fish worth? You don't need to kill a kid's enthusiasm. I smiled faintly. Whether they're worth something or not, we shouldn't destroy things others value. Steady tone. There should be basic principles in life. Makoto sneered. Principles are worth nothing. He poked my shoulder. You talk about principles? But did you manage to hold on to your woman? Keep your family together? Makoto had always been someone who kept score. After being rebuffed that night, he was even more eager to humiliate me. I replied calmly, I only protect what's important. I returned the fish tank to its place and said, what you're talking about isn't as important to me as the fish. If you want something to be precious, brief pause, then take care of it. Makoto's breathing grew heavy. His eyes burned with anger. You're just being stubborn, he snapped. I don't believe you've been married for 10 years and feel nothing. If you're smart, you'll get out of here. Don't make me take action. This time, I didn't even respond. I simply turned around and walked away. Makoto's eyes flashed with malice. Suddenly, he grabbed the fish tank. I reacted instantly, gripping it tightly. The two of us struggled. In the chaos, the fish tank was knocked to the ground. Crash. Glass shattered everywhere. Sharp shards sliced into our skin. At that exact moment, Willow came down the stairs. Chapter 6. When Willow saw the scene before her, she rushed down immediately. She checked Makoto first, her face filled with worry and panic. Makoto, are you hurt? I'm fine. Ah. Makoto suddenly collapsed, clutching his thigh, acting as if he were on the brink of death. Willow panicked. You're fine. I'm calling an ambulance right now. She was frantic, rushing to bandage his wound. After everything was done, she finally turned toward the shattered fish tank. So what happened? She asked coldly. It was him. David jumped out immediately, pointing straight at me. He insisted on fighting us over the fish tank. Uncle Ito got hurt because of me. Willow frowned deeply. George, didn't you say you wouldn't get angry? Her eyes were icy as she stared at me. How dare you bully Makoto behind my back? How despicable. Despicable? I pressed my hand against my bleeding wound, my voice trembling. These fish were carefully raised by me for 2 years. They came to take my things. Get your facts straight. I truly thought that Willow would be able to tell right from wrong. But instead, she twisted the situation further. So what if you raised them for 2 years? She snapped. They're just a few fish. Are they more important than people? Apologize to Makoto. Right now. David shouted too. Apologize to Uncle Ito. You're a bad person. Mother and son stood together, scolding me. Then, the sound of an ambulance siren cut through the air. They rushed to help Makoto out the door. I remained standing there, frozen. After a long moment, I slowly crouched down and gently scooped up the dying fish. A sharp pain pierced my chest. Only then did I realize how much I truly cared about them. Only then did I notice the pain in my hand. The wound was deep, jagged, far worse than Makoto's cut. But every bandage in the house had already been used on him. I had no choice. I wrapped my hand with my clothes, clenched my teeth, and made my way to the hospital alone. As the doctor bandaged my wound, several other patients passed by. One of them whispered, "Did you hear? Lou's daughter used all the imported medicine to help Ito recover quickly." Another replied, "The entire floor's nurses were called, all of them serving Mr. Ito alone in the VIP room." A third sighed, "Lou's daughter is such a perfect woman. If I had a wife like that, a perfect woman, using all the medicine for a minor injury." What kind of absurdity was that? I couldn't help but scoff inwardly. An affair with her son while married. Treating her husband like a dog. Truly, a rare gem of a person. After leaving the hospital, I received an invitation from the Vienna Music Academy. They wanted me to prove that my abilities hadn't regressed by composing a song as a test. I found a recording studio far from the city center. Outside, suburban fields stretched endlessly, merging into distant mountains. The air was quiet, clean, free. For the first time in 10 years, I could finally breathe. For 2 full days, I immersed myself there, cut off from the outside world. Slowly, I rediscovered my long-buried musical talent. With only 1 day left before my departure abroad, I finally sent my work by email. Then I opened my phone. 99 plus missed calls. 99 plus messages. Almost all of them from Willow and David. I frowned. Wasn't Willow supposed to be taking care of Makoto? Why was she contacting me? Confused, I took a taxi back to the villa. The moment I stepped inside, the butler and the gardener rushed over. Their expressions were grim. "Sir Wang, you're finally back," the butler said. "The house has been a mess these past 2 days. Madame Lu and the young master have been asking about you constantly." Only then did I realize something simple. The mother and son were just not used to having no one waiting on them anymore. David was at school, but Willow had been cooped up at home for days, nearly driven mad by it. When she finally saw me, she leaned against the doorframe. "Where did you go the other day?" Her voice was softer than usual, yet still carried that familiar chill. "The recording studio," I replied. She looked up. "What made you suddenly want to go there?" "To clear my head." I brushed the question aside. After all, she had never cared about my hobbies. Whether it was fishing or gaming, to her they were just bad habits. She only cared about whether I met her emotional needs, whether I catered to her preferences. There was no reason to explain myself. After a brief silence, Willow spoke again. "About the fish tank incident." She paused, choosing her words. "Don't take it personally. Makoto is a guest. He's been spoiled by his family since childhood. I was just standing up for him." Then she added quickly, "Makoto has already moved out. You promised not to be angry, so don't make a fuss over something so trivial." Even her apology sounded reluctant, as if the blame still lay with me. Had I not disappeared for a short time, she probably wouldn't have bothered saying anything at all. I didn't respond. I simply went upstairs to get my luggage. "Wait, there's one more thing." Willow suddenly stopped me. She opened the cupboard and took out a fish tank. "This is one I personally picked out from the market," she said. "As compensation." Chapter 7. I suddenly chuckled. "No need. Quiet breath. They're just a few fish. If they die, then they die. I was leaving anyway. Raising more fish would be pointless. Besides, the ones I cared about most were already dead. Nothing could replace them." "Really?" Willow asked. Seeing my apparent magnanimity, unease crept into her expression. It was as if she no longer recognized the man in front of her. That night, I still slept in the study. The next morning, I got up as usual and made breakfast for her and David. The steaming seafood porridge was placed neatly on the table. For a brief moment, Willow felt as if everything she had lost had returned. What she didn't notice was that I was double-checking my flight schedule. An hour later, Willow took David to attend the group's charity dinner. She didn't inform me, because today, Makoto would be there. The banquet hall glittered with gold and crystal. Elites from all walks of life mingled, glasses clinking, laughter and conversation filling the air. Dressed in a luxurious gown, Willow settled David, then immediately went to look for Makoto. Not long after, I entered the hall as well. I was there to retrieve my visa from Lu's mother. As I moved through the crowd, fragments of gossip drifted into my ears. "Why is David alone?" someone whispered. "Did his mom go find Makoto again?" Another scoffed. "Lu's daughter is really obsessed with Makoto. I heard just the other day, to make up for past regrets, she bought him his favorite custom yacht." worth hundreds of millions. Someone else chimed in. Who would have thought that after all these years, Lou's daughter still can't let go of Makoto? When they were childhood sweethearts, she followed him everywhere. Baking cakes, making treats. If he didn't like one, she'd remake it from scratch. Then someone laughed and teased. Hey David, your mom loves Ito so much. Why don't you let him be your new dad? The crowd burst into laughter. David tilted his head back, innocent and naive. I like Ito too, he said brightly. I want him to be my new dad. Then he turned and saw me. Disgust instantly filled his little face. Why is this bad dad here? He shouted. You're not welcome. A group of spoiled rich kids quickly surrounded me, their eyes full of mockery. Well, one sneered. If it isn't Willow's useless husband. Last time you hurt Makoto, another said. And now you're here to cause trouble again? Someone laughed coldly. Lou's daughter is just pitying you. Don't even think about climbing the ladder as a kept man. You should leave now. Harsh words rained down from all sides. I didn't want to engage. I turned and headed toward the second floor. Suddenly, David shoved me. I didn't react in time. My foot landed on a fallen wine bottle. I slipped. Bang. My head slammed hard against the stairs. Blood spilled instantly. Hurry up and leave, David shouted. Don't ruin Mom's relationship with Ito. In that moment, realizing I had been pushed by my own son, felt like falling into an ice-cold abyss. I clenched my teeth and forced myself to stand. Blood streamed down my head. The sight was horrifying. I looked at him and asked softly, David, why did you push your dad? Hearing the commotion, Willow rushed over. She carefully helped me up. George, she said hurriedly, I'll take you upstairs to bandage your wound. Before she could move, a waiter ran over, panicked. Miss Lou, Mr. Ito is about to pass out from drinking too much. You should go check on him. Willow frowned, hesitation flickering across her face. George, I can walk on my own. I gripped the handrail, struggling to steady myself. Go check on Makoto, I said quietly. David has already gone over. Don't lose track of him. A flash of panic crossed Willow's eyes. She seemed to realize that my calm wasn't tolerance anymore. It was indifference. Mom, come quickly, David shouted from a distance. Ito's throwing up. She turned away. I'll be back in a few minutes, she said, guilt creeping into her voice. I'll take care of Makoto first. As soon as she left, I walked upstairs alone. I knocked on Lou's mother's private room. She opened the door, startled. What happened to you? Let me call an ambulance. No need, I said calmly. My flight is delayed. Delayed? She asked. Why are you in such a hurry to leave? She sighed deeply, unable to stop me. I know you've been wronged all these years. I won't stop you. These are the documents and the visa. If you need anything else, let me know. I need one more thing. I met her eyes calmly. Please don't tell Willow or David where I am. I don't want to be disturbed. All right. Thank you, ma'am. Outside the venue, the sky was clear, light clouds drifting lazily. I pulled my luggage beside me and looked up. From today on, everything connected to the Lou family had nothing to do with me. The storm of the past 10 years had finally ended, and I was about to step into a new beginning. I glanced back one last time, saying goodbye to my old self. Then, without hesitation, I turned around and walked toward the airport. Chapter 8. Meanwhile, back at the banquet table, Makoto was whispering something to David. As soon as he saw Willow approaching, he collapsed to the ground. Mom! David cried. Ito uncle is unconscious. You should take him to his room to rest. Willow used all her strength to help Makoto onto the bed. Just as she was about to leave, he suddenly opened his eyes. Drunk, yet sharp. He wrapped his arms around her neck. Willow, he murmured. How about we stay here? He pulled her closer, turning and pinning her to the bed. Willow's face flushed red. Aren't you drunk? She asked shyly. Makoto laughed. With how irresistible you look today, he said. How could I still be drunk? He loosened her clothes gently, leaning in to kiss her. She blocked him. Not today, Willow said. George is still injured. I need to take care of him. Makoto coaxed her softly. After today, there might not be another chance like this. Again and again he persuaded her. Finally, Willow gave in. She surrendered. 2 hours later, the banquet had long ended. Willow searched the entire restaurant. There was no sign of George. Frustrated, she hurried home. After calling through the house, only a few servants responded. Miss Liu, one said. Mr. Wong hasn't come back since this afternoon. What? Her frustration slowly turned into anger. Normally, when George got injured, he would simply bandage himself, then return home to cook and do laundry for her and David. He never went to the hospital. But today, he hadn't waited for her. He hadn't come home. What was he doing? Find him immediately, Willow snapped. Tell him to stop throwing a tantrum. After giving the order, she returned to her room. The moment she stepped inside, something felt wrong. Too empty. Books, clothes, even their wedding photos. Everything related to George was gone. Normally, George would throw out old things during cleaning. But this time, it was too much. A sudden suspicion flashed through her mind. Her eyes landed on an open envelope on the bedside table. She opened it. 5 large words stared back at her. Divorce agreement. Her face darkened instantly. She couldn't believe what she was reading. George had voluntarily given up his billion-dollar assets. He had even renounced custody of their son. And on the final page, her name was signed. Suddenly, she remembered. A week ago, George had asked her to sign something. She had been chatting with Makoto at the time. She hadn't even looked at it. She never imagined. It was a divorce agreement. She crumpled the papers violently and threw them into the trash. Divorce? She muttered. What a joke. George had been her punching bag for 10 years, serving her and their son without complaint. How could he abandon them now? How could he give up wealth and status just because Makoto returned? No, he must be threatening her. The more she thought about it, the more convinced she became. George was just trying to scare her. He would be back. He loved her too much. He had bled for her, sacrificed his dignity for her. No one loved her more than George. Clinging to that belief, Willow left her room and slumped onto the sofa. She waited. Hours passed. Evening came. He still didn't return. Then her phone rang. Her assistant's voice was tight with panic. Miss Liu, we've checked all the hospitals and pharmacies. We can't find Mr. Wong anywhere. It's like he's disappeared off the face of the earth. That's impossible. For the first time, the usually composed CEO panicked. She dialed his number herself. Sorry, the number you dialed is no longer in service. She tried again. Nothing. Every contact method blocked. Only then did Willow truly understand. George wasn't throwing a tantrum. He was gone. She paced back and forth, desperate, unable to think where to start. Memories flooded in, and with them a terrifying realization. She knew nothing about him. Not his interests, not his past, not his friends. She didn't even know where he used to go. Where should she begin looking? At that moment, David came home from playing soccer. As soon as he entered, he began shouting, "Bad Dad, hurry up and make me dinner. I'm starving." Sharp, spoiled, careless tone. Willow responded, "Stop yelling. Your dad is missing." Flat, restrained. Willow felt more and more irritated and tried to quiet her son. But to her surprise, David cheered when he heard the news. He exclaimed, "That useless loser finally left. That's great." Excited, cruel laughter. "Mom, let's have Ito uncle move in. He can be my new dad." Innocent tone, twisted intent. David started cursing George without restraint. His tone was so vicious that Willow shuddered. In shock, she asked, "Who taught you to say those things? He's your real dad." Breath caught. Disbelief. She remembered that, at most, father and son didn't get along. but it had never come to the point of severing their relationship. But since Makoto returned, David's behavior had become more and more unruly, and now he was a little demon. David rolled his eyes and said, "He doesn't deserve to be my dad. I don't want a useless dad like him." Arrogant, cold. David pouted and venomously added, "Today he even embarrassed himself at the banquet. I should have let him crash and die." Hateful. Shocking pause. "Shut up." Willow's face darkened as she scolded David. Voice raised, trembling. "He raised you for 6 years. How could you curse him like that? Tell me, is someone behind you, teaching you to talk like this?" Suspicion, fear underneath. Seeing that his mother seemed genuinely angry, David appeared scared. He stammered, "Ito, uncle told me. He said my dad's a useless loser, and I'd be laughed at by my classmates if I had him as my dad." Voice breaking. Just then, an urgent message from her assistant arrived. "Miss Liu, we've just found out that the Ito family has gone bankrupt abroad. Makoto only came back to seize your assets, so please don't fall for it." Turned out, everything was being orchestrated by Makoto behind the scenes. Willow collapsed onto the sofa, her heart being torn apart with pain. She couldn't believe that the man she had loved for so long was actually this kind of person. To get her wealth, he was willing to do anything, even driving George away. George had suffered so much injustice. Would he ever come back? She muttered to herself, "I'll find George first, and then I'll deal with Makoto." Low, resolute. Willow suddenly stood up, determined to mobilize all resources to search for him everywhere. Now that she had seen the truth, she would stop at nothing to find George. Chapter 9. For days passed quickly. A tip-off came stating that before George left the restaurant, he had gone to the second floor to find Lou's mother. Willow immediately drove to her mother's mansion and rushed to ask the moment she met her. "Mom, where's George? Did he come to see you?" Desperate, breathless. Lou's mother sighed and said, "Let him go." Calm final. It seemed that Lou's mother had anticipated that someone would come looking for her, and she comforted Willow. "Anyway, you didn't have much of a real emotional connection with him. Now that Makoto is back, I've watched both of you grow up. Mom, why are you trying to match me with Makoto too?" Willow trembled slightly. After learning the truth, she grew more and more repulsed by others trying to push her toward Makoto. She said, "I used to like Makoto, but I never agreed to divorce George." Lou's mother looked shocked and said, "You didn't agree? Then how did you two get divorced?" I didn't. I just..." Willow panicked again, not knowing what to say. Should she admit it was her carelessness? Or had she never really cared for George? Compared to George's dedication, Willow felt an overwhelming sense of guilt. For years, George had cared for her and their child more meticulously than her own parents, even to the point where he treated them like treasures. She was irritated. When she felt down, George would go out of his way to make her happy. Whenever they fought, he was always the first to back down. She had no appetite. George would bring her a different dessert every half hour. Willow couldn't imagine how terrible her life would have been without George for the past 10 years. Makoto might have been her first love, but now he only wanted to use her, to give up George for him. That was absurd. Seeing that her daughter was still upset, Lou's mother took a contract from her drawer. "Fine. I'll tell you the truth. Back when Makoto left for abroad, you were miserable. So I found someone to help you through it. It turned out George had urgently needed money at the time, to the tune of 5 million. He spent 10 years looking after you. They had hoped to marry, have children, and live a normal life. But with Makoto's sudden return, George sacrificed his wealth, and even his child's custody, deciding he would no longer enter the Liu family." Lou's mother continued, but Willow's ears began to ring. Her hands were trembling uncontrollably, and the contract she was holding nearly turned white from her grip. Had George been kind to her all these years simply as a task? Had he married and had children only because of a few pieces of paper? So George had never loved her. And once Makoto returned, he left without hesitation. That wasn't possible. If George's feelings for the family had all been fake, How could he have treated them so well? Willow wanted to deny the truth, but reality crashed over her like a tidal wave, breaking her apart. She tore the contract in half and slammed it onto the table. Lou's mother sighed. She hadn't expected things to turn out this way. Her daughter had always been cold and composed, only losing control when Makoto left, and now she was doing it again because of a few words from him. If she didn't find George soon, Willow might do something drastic again. Willow looked up, her eyes burning with determination. She said, "Mom, you must tell me where George went." Lou's mother hesitated for a long time, but finally decided to tell her daughter George's whereabouts. However, when she contacted her subordinates, she learned that George had changed his flight and cut off all surveillance. At that moment, Willow felt a wave of desolation wash over her. It seemed George was determined to sever ties completely. Lou's mother quickly tried to comfort her. "Don't worry, I can confirm he's at the Vienna Music Academy. The rest, you'll have to find on your own." "Okay." Willow's hope reignited. She immediately arranged for a private plane to take off at noon. When she returned home to pack, she found her son had brought Makoto inside. Makoto asked, "Willow, where are you going?" Willow's voice had grown cold, tinged with impatience. "What's it to you?" Seeing the man in front of her again, she only felt disgust and hypocrisy. Makoto was taken aback, but still stepped forward to show concern. "Are you feeling unwell? Let me take you to the doctor." She pushed him aside. "Move. I'm going to find George." Makoto was stunned. He hadn't expected that she had been searching for George all these days, not coming to see him. What had George done to make her like this? Makoto cursed under his breath, then pretended to be in pain and collapsed to the floor. He said, "Willow, the wound from the fish tank is inflamed. It hurts so much. Help me." This time, Willow didn't even glance at him as she walked past. David immediately shouted in distress, "Mom, don't you like Uncle Ito the most? Why are you still looking for that useless man?" Willow furrowed her brows. "Who's the useless one?" She glared at her son, her eyes cold with fury. She bit her lip and said, "Your own father was driven away by you, and now you call him useless. Makoto, are you behind all this? Teaching my son to say such things?" Makoto broke out in a cold sweat. His voice hoarse, he said, "Willow, what are you talking about? I don't understand." Willow's anger boiled over. She ripped off the bandage, revealing a completely healed wound. "Stop pretending. You've been scheming to drive George away. I was going to settle this with you later, but now you've walked right into my trap. Don't blame me." Makoto had never seen Willow this hysterical. His face turned pale with fear. He was well aware of the Liu family's influence and the consequences of crossing them. He pleaded, "Willow, please let me explain. I did it because I love you. George is not worthy of you. We've been in love since childhood. Come back to me. I'll take care of you and David for the rest of my life." He desperately crawled to Willow's feet, gazing at her with affection. But Willow only threw the documents in his face. This is your idea of a lifetime of responsibility? When you were 19, you left me and went abroad. Now you're broke and want to come back and grab my fortune." Her eyes were freezing, filled with endless disappointment. For a selfish, hypocritical man, she had lost her true love, George. This wasn't just disappointment in Makoto, it was disappointment in herself. Makoto quickly said, "This isn't true. Don't believe the rumors." Makoto struggled in panic, but Willow didn't give him another chance. She had him thrown into a car and sent to his creditors. The creditors had been too afraid to act due to the Liu family's power, but now that they knew Makoto hadn't secured any money, they wouldn't let him go. Makoto screamed, "No, please, Willow. I was wrong." Hearing his desperate cries, David stood frozen, too scared to look his mother in the eye. Willow turned to David and said coldly, "I've spoiled you for too long. Now come with me. We're going to find your dad and apologize to him." Chapter 10. 2 weeks later, in a foreign country. I had just finished a month of courses and was leisurely strolling outside the Vienna Music Academy. At that moment, Anna quietly appeared behind me. Since we were from the same hometown, we had grown particularly close recently and had become inseparable friends. "George, you should check the news. Apparently there's gossip about Miss Liu. It said she dumped her lover and has been running around the world with her child, looking for you." I responded indifferently, flat, distant. I merely acknowledged it with a sound, but inside, I felt no stir of emotion. Anna asked, "After 10 years, her mother and child ignored you, and now they're frantically looking for you? What do they think you are? Angry, protective?" Anna was furious on my behalf. She said, "If she keeps bothering you, I'll get revenge for you." I reassured her, "Don't be upset. I'm doing just fine here." After comforting her for a bit, I turned into a small alley and said, "By the way, I still need to go back and cook for Ava, so I'll head off now." "All right, see you tomorrow." The evening in Austria was always so enchanting. The dreamy sunset bathed every corner of the skyline. Breathing in the fresh air mixed with the earthy smell of rain, I returned to my residence. It was a small house I rented off campus, where I spent my time gardening and playing the piano. Life was peaceful and pleasant. "Uncle Wong, you're back." A sweet voice came from inside, and Ava excitedly ran out. She almost tripped over the long apron she was wearing. I hurriedly caught her, saying, "You're wearing an adult-sized apron, little one?" Gentle concern, soft chuckle. She smiled. "I made your favorite Coca-Cola chicken wings, Uncle. You work so hard every day. I don't want to be a burden to you." Sincere, careful, shy warmth. Looking at Ava's dirt-covered little face, my heart softened. Ava was an abandoned child I met at an orphanage. At the age of 6, she was adopted by a foreign couple, but after their sudden death, she was trafficked and ended up here, lost and alone. It was a strange twist of fate that when I dropped my wallet, a hungry Ava chased me for 5 blocks to return it to me. Her kindness and responsibility had led to us being reunited. She asked, "Uncle, why are you crying?" I replied, "I'm not crying." Quick denial, strained. She questioned, "If you're not crying, why do your eyebrows look like that?" Ava imitated me by furrowing her brow, looking incredibly cute. I couldn't help but laugh, reaching out to pat her little head, my heart full of emotion. For 10 years, I had been tirelessly dedicated to what I thought was a family, always smiling, always serving Willow, but she had never acknowledged me. I cooked nutritious meals for David even when I was sick, but neither of them ever showed any concern for me, not even knowing my likes and dislikes. Yet here was a child with no blood relation, whose small actions had touched me deeply. I suddenly wished Ava were my daughter. I said, "Let's go, Ava. Let's have dinner." She responded, "Okay." We held hands as we were about to enter, but suddenly, I heard footsteps from behind. I turned around, my brows furrowing slightly. There they were, the 2 faces I had dreamt of escaping from. Willow and David. They were standing there, their hair messy and damp with rain, looking particularly disheveled. They had been in Austria for 2 weeks, searching for me every day. From social groups to the Chinese streets, they had asked almost everyone they could, and finally they found my address. I didn't say a word, turning around to leave. Willow rushed after me, shouting, "George, don't go." I asked, "What's the matter, Lou?" Cold, distant. She said, "It's been a month already. You still won't come back." I replied, "Sorry. I'm doing fine here. If there's nothing else, please leave." I was as cold as ice, my voice void of any emotion. Willow began to panic, saying, "Is there nothing we can talk about? Come back with me. I'll agree to anything you say. You like it here, right? We could buy this place, hire 10 gardeners to take care of the flowers, and we can vacation here. Oh, and you want to learn music? We can bring in top musicians to teach you and—" "Willow," I stopped her, swallowing hard. "We're divorced. Please stop bothering me." Upon hearing this, Ava immediately hugged my leg, glaring at Willow and David with hostility. Don't come back here. You're not welcome. David, standing nearby, suddenly felt a surge of jealousy. The nanny he used to boss around was now so close to this strange child. He shouted, "You're nothing. Let go of him. He's my dad." David gritted his teeth and ran over, pulling the two apart with all his might. After 2 weeks of searching, he was already frustrated. And now that I still refused to go back with them, he let out all his anger. Pampered since childhood, David directed all his fury at Ava. He screamed, "He's not yours. You're not allowed to take my dad." Wah! Sharp cry piercing. Ava's arm was reddened from being yanked, and she couldn't help but cry. But her little hands still clung to me. She knew that if she let go, she would have nothing left. Uncle must have suffered a lot at Lou's house. She didn't want him to endure any more pain. She cried out, "Uncle Wong, Ava will protect you. I don't have anything left now. I can't lose you." Broken, desperate, her cry struck my heart like a dagger. For the first time in 10 years, I was furious. With a loud slap, I struck David across the face. He staggered back, unable to believe it, and started crying hysterically. He cried, "You hit me, just for this little slut." David's foul language had only gotten worse over time. Another slap rang out. The sound echoed through the yard, leaving Willow frozen in place. I cursed, "Clean up that filthy mouth of yours." Suppressing my anger, I coldly glared at David. "I've loved and cared for you for 6 years, only to raise a wolf cub. If you don't learn your lesson now, you'll be beaten to death one day. I'm telling you, you're a Lou, not my son George Wong. From the day you raised your hand against me, from the day you disrespected your elders, from the day you took a thief as your father, we severed all ties." Hearing these words, David cried even louder. Though he couldn't fully comprehend, he knew now. I truly didn't want him anymore. He no longer had a father. "Mom, Dad doesn't want me anymore." Helpless, broken, David ran toward Willow crying. But what awaited him was another slap. Slap. Willow scolded him. "Now you're crying?" Back then, 2 fried chicken wings from Makoto could make you turn upside down. And now you're conspiring to harm your real father. Willow grabbed him and forced him to kneel, saying, "Now apologize to your father." Chapter 11. "I'm sorry, Dad. I know I was wrong." David's eyes were so swollen from crying he could barely open them, but he kept banging his head on the ground as he repeatedly apologized. "I know you were only doing what's best for me. I shouldn't have yelled at you or hit you." His forehead was bleeding from the constant bowing, but he didn't stop. At this moment, he finally understood how much it must have hurt when I was knocked down and hit my head that day. Willow said, "George, it was us, your mother and I, that were wrong, taking your kindness for granted." Her eyes were red, and she continued, "We've woken up to the truth. Makoto has been punished. We're ready to start over. Will you give us another chance?" The once arrogant Miss Lou, who used to look down on everyone, was now bowing her head in apology to a mere son-in-law. But I didn't hesitate for a second. "No." "Why?" Willow looked at me, stunned, her voice trembling. "Did you never love me? Don't you feel anything for me at all?" I replied, "No." I shook my head calmly, with no emotion in my eyes. I said, "All the kindness I showed you was nothing but a contract. I'm just an ordinary person. What right do I have to marry into a wealthy family? What right do I have to earn the affection of a young lady? And what right do I have to compete with my beloved for a place? Love? Pause, breath. That's something I don't deserve." My cold words felt like daggers stabbing into Willow's heart. She stared at me, her breath catching in her throat. The person who used to look at her with nothing but love and affection now couldn't even bring himself to look at her. She had never seen me like this before. She said, "George, I..." Before she could say anything else, I turned away and left her with 2 final words. "I never loved you. Not in the past, not now, and not in the future. The contract is over, and everything was just a farce. I grabbed Ava's hand and led her home. The little girl glanced back at the mother and son one last time. Willow and David couldn't say a word, their faces pale with shock and sorrow. As the door closed behind us, it felt as though we were in completely different worlds. Inside, the warmth was soothing. Ava and I sat at the table enjoying a hot meal while we played around and laughed together. Outside, the last rays of sunlight faded, and Willow and David were left in complete darkness, losing all their light. From that day on, every time I left the house, I would find a pile of gifts outside my door, each topped with a fresh bouquet of roses. I would just laugh quietly and toss the flowers into the trash. Willow still didn't understand. She never realized that she didn't like the kind of rose she was giving me, one with thorns. No matter how beautiful it would never be able to get close. I left the other gifts untouched until a week later, when Willow came knocking at my door again. She was apologizing nonstop, but I was so tired of it that I called the police. The police said, "Sorry, ma'am, your visa has expired. You must be forcibly deported. Moreover, because of your repeated harassment of Mr. Wong, your visa application will not be approved without his consent." Hearing this, Willow had no choice but to return to her country. Life without me became increasingly miserable for the mother and son. The new chef didn't understand their tastes and often cooked meals they didn't like. The hired nanny was too sensitive and left as soon as she was scolded or hit. David wrote an apology letter every day, hoping one day he could hand it directly to his father. Willow tried every possible method to contact George, but the withdrawal symptoms tortured her with longing. She searched through her phone's gallery but could only find a few photos together. They were old selfies she had sent to Makoto, with George appearing in the background. Willow muttered to herself, "How could this happen? Did I really never care about him?" A wave of pain spread through her body as she realized the truth. Only after losing something did she understand its value. During the days after George left, Willow had simply felt the inconvenience of no one taking care of her. But now, with the truth revealed, she understood. She had long since fallen for him. Not only did she marry him, but she wouldn't have minded giving herself to him. It was just that Makoto had been too dazzling, making her overlook the love hidden in her heart. True love is what remains after the bubble bursts. "Miss Liu, I found a clue." At that moment, her assistant called. Willow said, "Tell me." The assistant replied, "Mr. Wong has suggested charitable donations to an orphanage that he grew up in. Apparently the director is very close to him, and maybe they can get in touch with him." Upon hearing this news, Willow immediately headed to the orphanage. In the director's office, several bags of expensive gifts were placed on the desk, and Willow made her intentions clear. However, the director immediately pushed the gifts back, frowning. "Take it back. I won't accept anything from the Liu family." She glanced at Willow warily, knowing that the other party likely had an ulterior motive. In order not to worry George, the director had quietly rejected all the Liu family's charitable donations after he left, because she knew very well that everything the Liu family gave came with a price. Willow said, "Director, you misunderstand. I only have one small request." She spoke sincerely. "I can't get in touch with George right now. Could you please help me make a call?" The director responded, "Miss Liu, you must be joking." The director slowly said, "You've been married to George for 10 years and still can't contact him. How would an old woman? Someone, bring the family law." Several bodyguards took out a winding wooden cane and surrounded Willow. He cursed, "Throwing your life away for an unfaithful man, with no self-respect, violating the Liu family's ancestral teachings." Whack! The cane struck, and Willow's clothes instantly ripped, causing her to fall to the ground. He continued to berate her. 10 years of marriage, infidelity, forcing out my best son-in-law, bringing disgrace to the Liu family, shameless. Another strike. Willow pressed her hands on the ground, feeling the fiery pain in her back, her face streaked with tears. "Mom!" David shouted, rushing over, glaring at Martin. "Don't you dare hit my mom." Martin gritted his teeth and said, "Fine, fine." Looking at his disappointing children, Martin, in his rage, nearly fainted on the spot. He pointed at David and said, "Then let this one get a taste of the whip." David, showing no respect, no upbringing, a disgrace to our entire family. Martin personally struck David, who screamed and cried out in pain. Lou's mother, feeling heartbroken, rushed forward to stop him, saying, "Enough! Stop hitting them!" But Martin slapped her across the face. He shouted, "You shameless woman! Willow wants to die, and you let her? Look at what this family has become under your pampering." Lou's mother, tears streaming down her face, said, "I did it for her sake." Martin scowled. "For her sake? Does that give you the right to destroy other people's lives? Have you been in charge for so long that you think you control everything?" Martin scoffed. "Today you almost offended the Sue family of a city. If I hadn't come in time, the Lou family would be finished, thanks to you." The three of them were completely humiliated, their eyes swollen from crying. Willow was in pain, both physically and emotionally. Hearing her father's words, she slapped herself twice in frustration. "Master, the situation has been handled, and the culprit has been caught." At this moment, one of Martin's subordinates entered, dragging in a disheveled Makoto. His face was pale, filled with fear, as he pleaded, "Lou, master, please, I beg you, let me go." Martin asked, "Is this all because of you, you miserable cur? Causing trouble?" Martin's voice turned cold, his eyes dark and piercing as he said, "You dare to cause trouble after losing a hand? I'll make sure you're completely quiet from now on." The autumn rains continued relentlessly. The first thing I did after receiving the earnings was to brave the rain and head to the orphanage. The director saw us arrive, and her worried expression turned into joy. "George, Ava, you're here. I've been waiting for you since last year. I'm so glad to finally see you." I said, "Grandma, I've been busy with the concert, so I haven't had a chance to visit you." I took Ava's hand and said, "I plan to donate another $2 million to the orphanage this time. This is all money I earned personally. I also want to ask you about the adoption process." The director was a bit surprised and asked, "What, do you want to adopt Ava?" "Yes, I don't want to see her drifting around anymore." The director nodded. "Adoption would be good." She gently stroked Ava's sweet face and sighed. "But unfortunately, since you're an adult male, you can't adopt her alone. To meet the criteria, you must be married in order to adopt a child." Chapter 15, Marry a Wife. Where am I supposed to find one? I stared blankly at Ava, but before I could think further, a voice came from behind. "Marry me then." Anna cheerfully stepped forward. I quickly responded, "Don't joke around. This can't be." Despite my frantic rejection, the director immediately saw through my thoughts. Anna had heard the rumors a long time ago. Though she was from a good family, she had no airs about her and had even helped me a lot. Such a wonderful girl. She'd be perfect for George. The director smiled and teased, "All right, you two. Get closer. Let me see if you make a good match." Anna pulled me closer, our faces almost touching. She asked, "Grandma, what do you think?" The director replied, "Very good. You two really do look like a couple. Ava also thinks you two look like a married couple." Hearing Ava's innocent and serious voice, we all burst out laughing. Still feeling a bit shy, I said, "Grandma, maybe we'll talk about this later." Anna pinched my arm, complaining, "George, do you not like me?" Anna said, puffing out her cheeks, "I'm not worse looking than Willow, and you managed to put up with her for 10 years. "That's right," the director added. "You can't be that bad at enjoying life, can you? A girl like her is hard to find, even if you searched with a lantern. And with a sensible child like Ava, if you don't adopt her soon, someone else will." After hearing this, I no longer had any doubts. I felt as if a little sprout had pierced through the soil, blooming with vitality. It was my heart that had long since died, but now it was starting to come back to life. Since Anna trusted me so much, I shouldn't keep avoiding it. The only way to truly accept this love was to become a better version of myself. 2 days later, Anna and I finalized the paperwork and went home to cook a hot pot. We sat around the table as a family of 3, and the atmosphere was incredibly warm. Ava looked at us eagerly and said, "Mom and Dad, when the new year is over, could you pick a date to get married?" I smiled and said, "You sure do speak fast with that little mouth of yours." Anna, hearing herself called Mom for the first time, blushed. Just then, there was a knock at the door. I opened it and found Willow and David standing there. "George, don't close the door. We're not here to disturb you." Willow's face was pale and exhausted, her voice hoarse as she said, "I have no home left. I've been completely kicked out of a city. We may never see each other again." I replied, "Is there anything else you need to say?" She said, "Also, I wish you both eternal happiness." Willow looked at the warm family before her, and her heart was filled with mixed emotions. This was once supposed to be hers, but now it was too late. David said, timidly, "Daddy, can I have one last hug? I promise I'll be a good boy from now on. Always listen to you." I hesitated for a moment, but in the end, I still embraced him. After all, he was my own flesh and blood. How could I let my son live with regret? Instantly, both mother and son were in tears. Despite the overwhelming sadness in her heart, Willow held herself back from disturbing the atmosphere of the new family, and with great effort pulled David away. She said, "We won't disturb you any longer. Goodbye." I said, "All right, I wish you both happiness in the rest of your lives." I watched as the two of them disappeared into the light rain, and I finally felt a sense of peace. Everything has to come to an end. They had received the punishment they deserved, and I had gained a brand new life. 10 years of memories. I hope they will slowly fade with the passage of time.